Hey gang, I just thought I'd talk a little bit about the design of this marble racetrack here, which is called CropDuster Raceway, built in the lovely, excellent game Marble World, and named after the Waterflame song called CropDuster. And that was kind of the inspiration for this track, was just the idea of a little bit of a cornfield racetrack. The song, which you're listening to right now, I think is pretty nice racing music. And I think there's kind of an interesting little aesthetic to this track. You can see there's no supports for the track as I have on some of them. The idea is that you are flying in a bit of a CropDuster plane, as is famous from Disney Pixar's Planes movie. And yeah, just kind of a general vibe here of the floating ring checkpoints, which I think are nice, although I think there are maybe a few too many of them. But yeah, besides that, I think the color scheme and the vibes of this track are pretty nice. The design of the track, I think it could use some work. It's not ideal, but there are absolutely some redeeming features, and I thought I'd talk about why I built it the way I did. Now, if we start at the starting line, which can be a little bit difficult to find in this kind of maze-like, this maze of marble tracks, we start down a little bit of a long straight and down this first turn, which is what establishes the start of the pack order. And this is my first problem with the layout of the track, is that it uses these ladders. Now, of course, they are built into Marble World. I suppose maybe you are supposed to use them for this purpose. They are the developer intended feature, but I just don't think they make for very engaging racetracks. Oftentimes, you can see that Dawn was having trouble getting on, Snowball is having some trouble getting on, and on top of that, they are very slow. And even if you counteract that, if you make the escalator, which is what they're called in game apparently, I call them ladders. But yeah, if you make it faster, it is harder for the marbles to get on, and apparently easier to fall off, which that's new to me. Then if you make it slower though, it's very boring to watch them slowly crawl up the ladder. Then we have this little section here, which is a very little bumpy section, which is somewhat inspired by mountain biking tracks, just like my Dune Canyon Stadium track. Just with these bumps that you pull down, I just remember some lovely trails that feel a bit like this to go down. They're a lot of fun. This was not as good of a passing section as I really hoped it would be, but it's kind of exciting to watch, and fairly prone to marbles falling off the track, at least sometimes, which is not ideal in my opinion. And as we come down here, we have a couple more turns. Not much to say about this, just some classic turns and a bit of a jump over the track here. And again, like I did on Dune Canyon Stadium, I have invisible track and some invisible boosters just to make sure the marbles make it over this jump and don't fall onto the track below, which would, again, not be ideal. But yeah, I just think those jumps are a little bit fun and they reinforce the idea of the CropDuster. And now here is another part where the track gets a little bit hard to follow because the track disappears. We have an invisible pipe with reverse gravity to take you up, and like all reverse gravity type lifts, maybe not all of them, but all of the ones that I have built before, it does tend to have some problems where marbles will go up this section and they'll kind of flounder, they'll pop up back and forth and have some trouble exiting the lift. But you know, that's kind of par for the course, and I think it's better than having the ladder, but less ideal than a booster elevator like I do on my modern tracks. Now, as we have going down here, we have a little bit of a half pipe section, which is a little fun. Although on half pipe sections, you don't often have a lot of marbles passing each other. It can happen, of course, but I think it's less common even than on the typical flat tracks with the walls. For whatever reason, I guess marbles can get a better angle than each other, cut inside, and get the dub. And we have another jump here, which, if I turn on see invisibility, yes, once again, we do have that invisible track there. You can also see the invisible thing which is a giant square under the cornfield, and that is just a marble deleter to make sure that anytime a marble falls off the track, as long as they land in this cornfield, they will be removed from the race immediately, which I think is a lot more graceful than having them sit around and have to wait for the DNF timer. Anyway, we come up to one more of these anti-gravity tube lifts, and you can see that it's just kind of a wacky shape here. It was invisible, so I figured why not get a little wacky with it, have the marbles flying around erratically like you might see in a real plane. We come around a hard right turn, hard left turn. That is absolutely a passing opportunity, which this track doesn't have any major passing opportunities or what have you, like you did on that Dune Canyon Stadium, once again with the big funnels and the shortcuts and stuff. So the pack does tend to stay a lot closer on this track. We've got a little bit of a bumpy section, and this is probably the bit where I feel the most bad about having the visible checkpoints, and especially these visible pink walls. I don't really know why I made those visible instead of invisible. I think maybe ideally I would invisible half of these checkpoints, and that way the rings still look good without being too cluttered like this and kind of blocking your view of the track, if I'm being honest. We come around this final bank turn. I guess maybe not final. We come around this bank turn, a couple more turns toward this one pipe over here, which doesn't take you up very far, but it does bring you back around to the finish line. Now that you've seen the whole track, you might have a better appreciation of what's going to happen here. Maybe not so much as on some of the tracks, because it does tend to be a little bit homogeneous. It's just tracks and half pipes throughout. But in any case, we can watch a lap of a race go on here. Pick your favorite marble. Let's see if they win. Looks like Cherry Bomb is probably going to take the lead as we come into this right turn at the start. Oh, but Haley does get ahead. But again, Haley is harmed a lot by that elevator, that escalator, that ladder, whatever you like to call it. Has a bit of a hard time getting on. Even though this lift is on speed 1, it's still not 100% to get on there. I know that's kind of a drum that I've beaten a lot, but I would absolutely recommend building tracks with a booster elevator rather than that. And it looks like Chocolate Bar has taken the lead. Even Cherry Bomb is able to get ahead of Snowball, even though it was a rung lower, just because it was on a favorable position. But Titanic almost takes the lead. Chocolate Bar claims it back. Lovely. Over the jump. And yeah, lots of bank turns on this track, which I think do look pretty lovely. Yeah, there was Chocolate Bar floundering. A lot of these marbles having a bad time exiting that pipe like I was talking about. But Chocolate Bar is holding the lead through this half pipe. You can see not a lot of marbles are passing. Chip gets ahead of Snowball apparently, and that's about it. One more jump around here, and I think that jump actually does look pretty lovely. I think it's a cool look that, even if it isn't the most engaging for racing purposes, it is a cool spectacle to see them going down the jump. Similar for this bump section, honestly. Although the bump also has the risk of marbles falling off, which is why I have these big walls on the side. And we're coming around this final thing. Chocolate Bar does manage to hold the lead up until the end. Titanic takes second, Snowball takes third. Carl manages to pass Chip just barely before the finish line. Metal Submarine payback. We'll see. Did some people not finish? Oh, would you look at that. We have some marbles getting stuck here. Whirlpool, Haley, and Dawn. That was absolutely an oversight. When I was building this track, again, this was in high school when I was perhaps not as expert at the track as we have kind of a cluster of DNFs here. Ideally, this section of the track would be sloped downhill so the marbles wouldn't be able to valley there, as they say in roller coaster parlance, and get stuck. So again, this is not my best track, but I would say it is better than Forest Raceway overall, and in the Thunder Zone, a potential candidate to get up-resed in the college track building era. Maybe see it as a really cool racetrack to watch instead of this only moderately cool one. Anyway, I'll see you guys in the next one. Adios.